Undercover boss orders. A steak at his restaurant. He freezes. Hearing the waitress crying in the kitchen. What happens when a CEO books a table at his own five-star steakhouse and finds out the truth behind the marble counters and polished service? Ethan Cole, founder and CEO of Cole Cedar, a luxury steakhouse chain known for dry-aged beef and old-money clientele, had built the brand on one promise: quality above all. But lately, that promise had started to feel hollow. Customer complaints were subtle but consistent, about texture, about taste, about something off. Senior managers dismissed them. Reports looked fine, numbers were flat. But Ethan knew his diners, and when longtime regulars stopped booking their usual tables, it wasn't just a blip, it was a warning. So he decided to find out for himself. No private jet, no assistance, just a fake reservation under a different name, a worn coat, and a quiet seat near the open kitchen at the uptown Cole Cedar, once the crown jewel of his empire. What he didn't expect was to uncover a rot that started not with the food, but with the people serving it. The moment Ethan stepped through the glass doors of Cole Cedar uptown, it hit him. Not the smell of dry-aged ribeye, not the soft hum of jazz playing overhead, not even the polished mahogany booths he'd hand-picked himself. It was the stillness, a kind of staged perfection that felt off. He took his seat in the corner, a four-top, table 14. He remembered opening night. This table used to be booked a month in advance. Tonight, two others like it sat empty, and no one seemed to care. Then she appeared. Lana, early 30s, pressed white shirt, hair tied back, a notepad in one hand and tired courtesy in the other. "Good evening," she said with a trained smile. "Welcome to Cole Cedar. Can I start you with something to drink?" "Just water," Ethan replied. Their eyes met for a second longer than expected, not in recognition, in exhaustion. He glanced at the side of her hand. It trembled just slightly as she scribbled on the pad. She turned and walked away. Fast, efficient, no wasted movement, like someone used to running on fumes. From his seat, Ethan could see into the semi-open kitchen. Not all of it, but enough. The gleaming steel counters, the slicing station, the grill, and in the far left corner near the prep fridge, Rosa. He hadn't seen her in years. Gray hair pulled into a tight bun, broad-shouldered apron, hands like a sculptor, steady, sure, worn. Rosa had been one of the first chefs he ever hired, back when Cole Cedar was just one location and a prayer. She was supposed to retire last year. So why was she still here, prepping like a line cook? He watched as she opened a sealed plastic packet. The marbling of the meat inside was pale, too pale. Not dry-aged, not fresh, frozen. Ethan's throat tightened. Rosa didn't look happy as she laid the meat out under the heat lamps. She glanced over her shoulder once, then again, and that's when he walked in. Kurt, the night manager. Mid to late 30s, slicked back hair, crisp vest, permanent smirk. Ethan had only met him once in a quarterly meeting. He remembered Kurt talked more about turnover rates than food. Kurt stepped behind Rosa and muttered something low. She froze, didn't turn, didn't speak. Just nodded once. Ethan strained to hear. Then it came. Clearer now, harsher. "We're not tossing a $40 cut just because you think it's not pretty enough. Grill it. Serve it. Don't think." Rosa didn't argue, but her hands shook as she lifted the meat onto the tray. Ethan took out his phone and typed a single note. "Ribeye. Frozen." Rosa hesitated. Curt. Forceful. Lana returned with his water. "Have you dined with us before?" she asked, eyes scanning the table. "Once or twice," he replied. She nodded, offered the menu, and then added, almost off script, "The filet is good tonight. It's the only one that's local." Ethan looked at her. There was something in her tone, a softness under the sentence, a warning buried in the sales pitch. He didn't question it. "I'll have that," he said. She left without writing it down. At the next table, a well-dressed man in a tailored jacket leaned over to his guest and whispered, a little too loudly, "They've changed the aging process. You can taste it. It's not the same cut." His guest, a woman in a black sheath dress, nodded slowly. "It's chewy. That's all I'm saying." Ethan looked around. 3 other tables had steaks in front of them, all with some part left untouched. The servers smiled, offered refills, and cleared quietly. No one complained. But no one finished their plate either. He looked back toward the kitchen. Kurt was gone. Rosa had stepped aside, cleaning trays. The ribeye sat under the warming lamp, untouched. Lana walked into the pass-through, checked the ticket, hesitated, then picked it up with a kind of resigned grace. She served it to a couple at 2 tables down. The man took 1 bite, paused, and sipped his wine before saying anything. The woman kept chewing, long and slow, before setting her fork down. Ethan didn't need to hear them. He'd seen that look before. Doubt. He turned back to his phone, typed customer expressions. Hesitation. Ribeye likely frozen. Lana, subtly trying to redirect orders. Then he wrote, "Employees surviving the shift not proud of it." And beneath that for himself, "This isn't the house I built." Ethan didn't plan on going into the kitchen. Not on his first night. But the sound pulled him in. It wasn't the clang of pans or the hum of the walk-in freezer. It was a voice, tight, raised, on edge. "Do you want to explain why this ticket is 8 minutes late?" It was Kurt. Ethan leaned against the corner of the service hallway, just out of sight. He could see through the glass pane of the swinging kitchen door. Kurt stood with his arms crossed, looming over Rosa like she was a trainee who'd dropped a plate. Rosa didn't answer. She just held up a printed ticket and pointed at the grill. "It's being finished now," she said quietly. "I told you we're short a cook on protein. I'm doing both lines." Kurt scoffed. "You always have an excuse. If you can't handle the rush, maybe it's time to call it." Something about the way he said it, "call it," made Ethan freeze. He wasn't offering help. He was threatening her. Rosa didn't flinch, but she also didn't push back. Instead, she turned, stepped back to the grill, and slid the fillet onto the resting board. Her motions were precise, practiced, but her shoulders looked heavy, like they were dragging every plate she'd ever served behind them. Kurt watched her for a beat too long, then turned and walked toward the manager's office, muttering to himself. Ethan waited until he was gone. Then he walked into the kitchen. Rosa looked up, startled. She didn't recognize him. "You shouldn't be back here," she said, voice sharp but not unkind. "This is staff only." "I know," Ethan said softly. "Just wanted to compliment the fillet." She raised an eyebrow. "It tasted like something someone still cared about," he added. She stared at him for a moment. Her eyes didn't soften, but they did study him longer. "I do care," she said, "even when I'm told not to." Ethan nodded slowly, then gestured toward the meat station. "I saw the ribeye earlier. Looked different." Rosa didn't answer at first. She wiped down the cutting board with a damp towel, slowly, methodically. Then she said, "They changed the supplier 6 months ago, frozen cuts from a warehouse upstate. Half the time it arrives still frosted. We're supposed to run it under warm water and make it look fresh." "Who's they?" "Kurt. Head office signed off, I guess. Said it cuts waste. Customers don't notice." Ethan swallowed hard. He hadn't signed off on anything. "They never told me," Rosa said almost to herself. "But I knew. The first time I touched the fat, too firm, like plastic." She leaned back against the counter. For a moment, she looked tired, not physically tired in the soul. "I used to pick every loin myself. Used to know the ranchers by name. Now I don't even get to open the box until it's half thawed." Ethan looked at her. not just at the lines on her face or the wear on her hands, but the dignity beneath it, the stubborn flame of someone who still gave a damn even when no one else did. "Why stay?" he asked. Rosa shrugged. "I thought maybe if I stayed long enough, someone would notice the difference." Ethan wanted to say something. He didn't. Instead, he turned, quietly left the kitchen, and went back to his table. Lana passed him on the way. She gave him a tired smile, one that said, "Thank you for not being another problem." And just before she disappeared back into the kitchen, Ethan caught something in her pocket, a folded slip of paper, a prep sheet. On the back of it, written in small, rushed pen, "Ask Rosa about the ribeye." He stared at it. She'd known. She'd been trying to say something all along. Ethan sat back in his chair. This wasn't just bad management. It was a quiet betrayal, and the people trying to hold it together, they were being buried under it. He looked down at his notes, then added one more line. "They're not just tired, they're surviving." The dinner crowd had thickened by 7:30. Tables filled, forks scraped the china, glasses clinked. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Ethan sat in silence, watching it all like someone sitting behind the glass of an aquarium. Everything moving, but nothing alive. He had ordered dessert just to buy time. No one questioned him. He doubted anyone would. When you're quiet and alone, most people look right past you. That's how the worst things survive. They count on no one watching long enough to see the pattern. Kurt came back into the dining area around 8. He adjusted his cuffs, smiled at a couple near the bar, and whispered something to a server before making his way to table 6, a pair of longtime regulars. Ethan recognized the man instantly. Bernard Riley, finance guy, gold card member, showed up twice a week with his wife for over a decade. They were sharing a tomahawk steak. Bernard raised an eyebrow after one bite. His wife set her fork down with a frown. Kurt leaned in, smiling widely. "Everything all right here?" Bernard wiped his mouth with a linen napkin. "Did you change the supplier?" he asked bluntly. Kurt didn't miss a beat. "Not at all. Same cut, same source. Probably just the sear tonight. I'll make sure the kitchen hears the feedback." Bernard gave a polite nod. His wife didn't speak, just stared at the meat. Kurt turned to walk away, and that's when Ethan stood up. "Actually," he said, not raising his voice, "that's not true." The words cut through the room like a blade. Several heads turned. Lana froze mid-step with a water pitcher. Rosa, from behind the kitchen window, dropped her towel. Kurt stopped walking, slowly turned around. "Excuse me?" he said, with a polite smile stretched tight across his face. Ethan walked forward. He didn't rush. He didn't look angry. He just moved with the quiet weight of someone who'd already made up his mind. "You said the steak came from the same source," Ethan said, now loud enough for the surrounding tables to hear. "But it didn't." Kurt narrowed his eyes. "Sir, if you have a concern—" "I do," Ethan interrupted. "It's called lying to a customer." Kurt took a step closer. "I'm going to have to ask you to sit down. We don't appreciate disruption in the dining room." Ethan smiled and pulled his wallet from his coat. He flipped it open, slowly, deliberately. Inside, under the soft light, was a black metal business card, one that said, "Ethan Cole, founder and executive chair, Cole and Cedar A." Ripple moved through the room. Rosa's mouth opened slightly in shock. Lana took a full step back. Even the bartender paused, a bottle of bourbon in hand. Kurt stared at the card like it had burned a hole in the air. Ethan lowered it. "I've sat here for 2 hours. I've watched a manager intimidate kitchen staff, push frozen cuts as premium product, and lie to the faces of people who built this place with their loyalty. So no, Kurt, I won't sit down." Kurt's voice was dry now. "I didn't know—" "You didn't care to know." Ethan stepped in closer, lowering his voice so only Kurt could hear the next words. And if Rosa wasn't twice the leader you'll ever be, this place would have crumbled months ago. Kurt looked away. I want you in the office, Ethan said, now turning his voice back to the room. Now. Kurt walked stiffly toward the back, the eyes of the staff following him like heat sensors. Ethan turned toward Lana. Rosa too, please, he said, if she's willing. Lana nodded and disappeared into the kitchen. A few customers clapped. Ethan didn't acknowledge it. He wasn't here for applause. He was here to make it right. The office hadn't changed since Ethan last visited this location, not in years. Same leather chairs, same frosted glass, same cheap clock ticking too loudly on the wall. But the energy in the room tonight was different. Kurt stood near the window, hands clasped tightly behind his back, silent and pale. He didn't look angry. He looked caught. And underneath that, empty. Ethan didn't speak to him. He sat down at the desk, waited. The door opened. Lana stepped in first, eyes flicking nervously between the two men. Behind her, Rosa followed, her apron still dusted with flour, hair pulled tight, gaze steady. Ethan gestured to the seats across from him. Please? Lana hesitated but sat. Rosa remained standing. I'm not sure I'm supposed to be in here, she said carefully. You're exactly who should be in here, Ethan replied. The words were simple, but they hit harder than he intended. Rosa finally sat. Ethan turned to Lana first. You've been here how long now? Almost 4 years, she said softly. He nodded. And in that time, have you ever seen things run the way they were supposed to? Lana didn't answer right away. Then, not really. Her voice cracked a little. When I started, everything was different. Orders were respected. The chefs had pride. The guests came for something they couldn't get anywhere else. And then, she glanced toward Kurt. Then it just started slipping, one small thing at a time. And no one stopped it. Ethan said nothing. Not yet. He turned to Rosa. I thought you'd retired. I tried, Rosa said. Didn't stick. There was a faint smile on her lips, but it didn't last. I came back because this place mattered to me, because I remembered what it was like when we used to care about every cut, every plate. But when I got here, the new kitchen crew didn't even know what dry-aged beef smelled like. She shook her head slowly. I wasn't supposed to cook, just help train. But every time I spoke up, I got quieter. Kurt made sure of it. Until I wasn't training anyone anymore. I was just another pair of hands. Her eyes didn't water. That made it worse. She'd already done her grieving. She didn't expect this place to change anymore. Ethan leaned forward. I didn't know what was happening. I should have. That's on me. Rosa looked up, and for the first time that night, her expression shifted. Softer, less guarded. You stopped showing up, she said. Not with anger, with truth. And it landed harder than anything Kurt had done all night. Ethan exhaled. I stopped showing up because I thought the system would carry the standard. I thought processes and protocols would be enough. But standards mean nothing if the people upholding them are lying. He turned to Kurt. You've run this location for how long? 2 years, Kurt mumbled. And in those 2 years, how many corners have you cut? Kurt hesitated. Enough to keep it profitable. And at what cost? No answer. Ethan didn't need one. He stood. Kurt, you're done here. Kurt's head snapped up. What? You're done, Ethan repeated. I'll have HR process your exit. You'll get what you're owed. But you're not setting foot in this kitchen again. Kurt looked like he wanted to argue. But he didn't. He just nodded once. Sharp. Then left the office without another word. The door clicked shut behind him. Silence. Ethan turned back to Rosa and Lana. I don't want to fix this with an email, he said. I want to fix it with you. Rosa raised an eyebrow. Starting now, you're back in charge of quality control. Not just at this location, across the brand. We'll rebuild what we lost, one honest cut at a time. Her eyes didn't widen. She wasn't the type. But something eased in her shoulders. A weight lifted. Just enough. Ethan turned to Lana. "You've been trying to hold this place together with nothing but courtesy and grit. I see that now. I want you in the next leadership track. Training, development, everything. You don't need permission to care about the customer experience." Lana didn't speak for a few seconds. Then, "Thank you." It was quiet, but it was real. Ethan stepped around the desk. No grand speeches, no corporate jargon, just one final thing. "I'll be here for the next 30 days, working side by side, listening, watching, cleaning this up. Not because I have to, because I should have done it a long time ago." He opened the office door, holding it for both women. Rosa passed him first, offering a short nod. Lana followed, and for the first time in 4 years, she smiled with her eyes. Ethan showed up at 9 a.m. the next morning wearing a plain black polo jeans and a worn apron. No one recognized him at first. He didn't walk in through the front. He came through the back entrance, the same door every line cook, dishwasher, and delivery guy used. No fanfare, no clipboard. Just a quiet nod to the prep cook and a pair of gloves tucked into his pocket. The kitchen smelled like bleach and raw onions. Rosa was already there, sleeves rolled up, setting up the dry storage for inspection. A new delivery was coming in that day, and for the first time in months, it wasn't from the frozen bulk supplier. Ethan walked up beside her. "No clipboard today?" she asked without looking up. "I left it at corporate," he replied. "Didn't seem like it helped much." Rosa let out a soft grunt, the closest thing she gave to a laugh, but she handed him a marker and pointed to a bin. "You want to work? Start labeling." He did, no hesitation. For the next hour, he didn't speak like a CEO. He moved like an apprentice, carried boxes, reorganized coolers, took notes with his hands, not a notepad. By noon, Lana showed up with 2 new hires for onboarding, both in their 20s, both fresh from culinary school. She introduced them to Rosa first, not Ethan. "This is the person you learn from," she said simply. The young woman nodded eagerly. The guy looked surprised. Rosa didn't acknowledge the praise. She just handed them a knife each and pointed to a crate of carrots. "Show me how you hold the blade," she said. Ethan stepped back and watched. This wasn't a rebrand. It wasn't a speech or a slogan. It was a culture shift. By day 3, the entire rhythm of the restaurant had changed. Ethan had pulled the plug on the frozen supplier, permanently. He personally reviewed every contract, every shipment, every ingredient. He also reinstated an old tradition that had vanished somewhere along the way, pre-service team meals. Nothing fancy, just simple food cooked together, eaten together, no hierarchy. He sat beside the dishwasher, across from Rosa, at the end of the table with Lana and the new hires. And for the first time in a long time, people laughed in that kitchen. Not performative, not polite. Just real moments of release. That night, a customer stopped Lana near the bar. "Did something change?" the woman asked, sipping her wine. "The steak tastes like it used to." Lana smiled. "It's not just the meat," she said. "It's who's cooking it." By the end of the week, Ethan started noticing the small things, the things that usually go unsaid. Servers stopped looking over their shoulders before saying something. Rosa no longer flinched when someone asked about sourcing. Even the line cooks, who had learned to move like ghosts to avoid being yelled at, started asking questions again. And most of all, there was pride. Not the kind you post about on LinkedIn, the kind you feel when you watch someone walk out with an empty plate and a full smile. Ethan was cleaning down the pass late one night when Lana approached. "You missed a spot," she said, pointing to a smudge near the warming lamp. Ethan wiped it. She didn't walk away. "I've seen a lot of bosses try to fix things with money," she said carefully. "Bonuses, new uniforms, PR. He looked at her, waiting. "But I've never seen one mop the back line." Ethan leaned back against the counter. "Most CEOs don't get the chance to look their mistakes in the eye," he said. "I did. I won't waste it." She nodded. And for a second, neither of them said anything. The place was clean, quiet, still, not perfect, but honest. Later that night, before locking up, Ethan scribbled one last line into the notebook he'd started the night he went undercover. It wasn't a checklist. It wasn't a KPI. It was a sentence. "You don't rebuild trust with a policy. You rebuild it with presence." And he planned to stay present for as long as it took. It came on a Wednesday, an email from the Corporate Compliance Department. Subject line: "Concerning allegation, Rosa Alvarez, Uptown location." Ethan stared at the screen. He was at the back office reviewing inventory logs when it landed in his inbox. The message was cold, sanitized, like it had been copied and pasted 100 times before. "We've received an anonymous complaint alleging that Rosa Alvarez has been diverting unused premium cuts for personal use. The tip includes references to security footage and unaccounted shrinkage in the past 3 inventory cycles." Ethan didn't move for a full minute. His first reaction wasn't anger. It was something worse. Doubt. Not in Rosa, in the system. He knew how this worked. An anonymous tip. A few vague patterns in the data, some grainy footage, and suddenly a lifetime of loyalty becomes a liability. He called compliance immediately, asked for details. They had none. Just a warning. This needs to be investigated quietly. If true, it could damage the credibility of the entire rebranding effort. And there it was, that sentence, the one that proved how broken it all still was. Protect the brand first. Ask questions later. Ethan didn't tell Rosa. Not yet. He walked back into the kitchen like nothing had happened, but something shifted. His eyes lingered longer than they used to. He watched who opened the coolers, who signed for deliveries, and who threw out scraps. Rosa noticed. That night after dinner service, she pulled him aside near the prep station. Her arms were crossed, jaw tight. "You're watching me," she said. "Why?" Ethan hesitated. He thought about deflecting, minimizing, then stopped himself. "An anonymous complaint came in," he said, "about you. Said you were stealing product." Rosa didn't blink. "You believe it?" "No," he answered quickly, too quickly. "But I'm being told to investigate anyway." She turned away, not angry, just tired. "I've been doing this for 30 years, she said, "and I've seen how fast respect can evaporate. You can show up early, stay late, feed people like family, and all it takes is one whisper." Ethan's chest tightened. "I don't want to make assumptions," he said, "but I have to look into it. If I don't, it'll look like I'm covering something up." "And if you do?" she asked, voice low. "What does that look like to the people who've been trying to do the right thing?" He didn't answer, because he didn't know. The next morning, Lana found Ethan sitting alone in the office. She knocked gently, then stepped inside. "I heard," she said. Ethan looked up. "How?" "Rosa didn't come in today." That hit him harder than he expected. "She doesn't call out," Lana added, "even when she's sick." Ethan closed the laptop, leaned back in the chair. "Someone's trying to take her down," he said. "I just don't know who." Lana sat across from him. "I have a guess," she said quietly, "but you're not going to like it." An hour later, Ethan was listening to a voicemail. It was from Olivia, a name he hadn't heard in months. She used to work prep, left under strange circumstances just before Kurt was fired. No formal complaint, no explanation, just gone. But now her voice was back, shaky but clear. "Hi, this is Olivia. I heard what's happening to Rosa, and I need to tell you something because I should have told you earlier. Before Kurt left, he tried to get me to sign off on a fake inventory discrepancy, said it would help clean up the books. I refused. 2 weeks later, I was off the schedule. He told me, If Rosa ever became a problem, we'd have a backup plan. He said no one would believe a 60-year-old prep cook over him. I didn't think he meant it. But now, I think this was it. The message ended. Ethan didn't move. Then he stood. And for the first time since returning to Uptown, he felt fire in his gut. Because this wasn't just about bad management anymore. This was retribution. And Rosa had become the target. He called Olivia, thanked her, then got on the phone with compliance, legal, and HR. I want that complaint pulled, publicly cleared now. They pushed back, cited protocol, image management, risk mitigation. Ethan interrupted. You're worried about the brand? Then fix this before she takes the fall for a culture we let happen. He didn't yell. He didn't need to. By the end of the day, the case against Rosa was dropped, and a memo was issued across the company. Anonymous complaints must now be backed by verifiable data and corroboration before being acted upon. A small change, but an important one. The kind that tells good people, you won't be punished for being good. That night, Ethan knocked on Rosa's apartment door. She opened it slowly, surprised to see him. No uniform, no apron, just him. He handed her a paper bag. Filet. Real one this time, he said. She stared at it, then at him. I'm sorry, he said, for hesitating, for letting them make you a suspect in the house you helped build. Rosa took the bag, said nothing, but her shoulders relaxed, and that was enough. The following week, Ethan returned to the Uptown location with something heavier than a clipboard or apron. He came with a microphone. Every seat in the private dining room was filled. Line cooks, servers, hosts, and managers from other locations. Lana sat in the front. Rosa sat near the back, arms crossed, face unreadable. Olivia was there too, quiet in a corner. She hadn't worked here in months, but today she came back by invitation. Ethan stood in front of them. No podium, no slides. Just him. Just the room. He paused before speaking, and then said the words no one expected to hear from a CEO. I'm here to apologize, not with PR, not with spin, with facts, silence. Rosa was accused of something she didn't do, and the system we built, the system I let grow, was ready to treat that accusation as truth. Heads turned toward Rosa. She didn't move. We've built a culture that rewards silence, that protects power more than people. That's not the company I meant to build, but it is the one I failed to watch. He glanced at Olivia. And when someone tried to speak up, like Olivia did months ago, we didn't protect her. We let her be pushed out, while the problem stayed behind. Olivia looked down. Ethan stepped closer to the group, voice low but steady. That changes now. He turned toward Rosa. You were here before the first wine list was printed, before the chandeliers, before the reviews. And you're still here, still holding the line, even when no one gave you the credit. I didn't just fail to protect you, I failed to recognize you. He held up a piece of paper, a company directive. Effective immediately, Rosa Alvarez is being appointed as Senior Quality Officer for Cole Cedar. She will oversee product sourcing, training, and kitchen standards company-wide. The room murmured. Rosa finally looked up. Her eyes narrowed slightly, but there was something else behind them now. Heat, pride, maybe even hope. And Olivia, Ethan continued, we owe you more than a second chance. You knew the truth. You tried to stop something wrong before it got worse. For that, I'm naming you as part of our new integrity and ethics team. You'll help design our complaint process, and this time, the process will protect the people it was supposed to serve. Olivia blinked. She looked like she didn't know how to react, as if waiting for a punchline that never came. But Ethan wasn't done. This isn't a fix, it's a foundation. Because culture doesn't change with a speech. It changes with decisions, with protection, with presence. He paused. And I plan to stay present. Then he looked around the room eye to eye. If you see something wrong, speak. If someone makes you feel small for doing what's right, come to me. Directly. There's no reward for being quiet anymore. That last line hit different. You could feel it in the room. The shoulders dropping, the breath slowly releasing, the quiet glance between two servers who had once whispered behind the dish pit, wondering if anyone was listening. Now they knew. After the meeting, Ethan stayed behind. One by one, staff came to speak to him. Some asked questions, others just said thank you. But when Rosa walked past, she didn't say anything. She handed him a folded napkin. Inside was a short note, written in looping cursive. You listened, not just to me, to the silence. That's what matters most. R. Ethan held on to that napkin like a certificate. That night, back on the floor, the energy in the restaurant felt different. Not louder, just lighter. Orders were called out calmly. The kitchen moved like music, not machinery. Even the customers noticed. One couple pulled Lana aside and said, "This place feels warm again." She smiled, eyes flicking toward Rosa in the back, now giving pointers to a new prep cook with the same steady hands she used when Ethan first hired her all those years ago. Later, Ethan stood outside the restaurant beneath the glow of the signage. The Cole and Cedar letters looked the same as always, polished, symmetrical. But for the first time in years, he felt like the name meant something again. Not because it was his, but because of the people who refused to let it rot. He looked at the windows, watching Rosa gently show a new line cook how to properly wrap fresh cuts for the next morning. Inside, the heart of the house had found its beat again. Some people think running a business is about numbers, margins, efficiency, growth. But the truth? It's about people. The ones who show up early, stay late, and hold the line when no one's watching. The ones who care when everyone else has learned not to. This story wasn't just about stakes or standards. It was about a woman who stood her ground, about a server who saw the cracks, about a culture that almost lost its soul, and a leader who finally stopped looking at spreadsheets long enough to listen. And maybe that's the lesson. Leadership doesn't begin with answers. It begins with presence, with the courage to say, I see you, I hear you, and I was wrong. So if this story hit something in you, if it reminded you of a time you felt unseen, unheard, or underestimated, know this: you're not alone. And your voice? It matters more than you think. If you want more stories like this, real stories with grit and heart, hit subscribe, tap the bell, and share this with someone who needs to know good people still make a difference. And sometimes the quietest ones save the whole damn place. See you in the next one.